Talking sports with Nooner and Forrest back once again this coming week. Uh, Today we have a very special guest, Brad. Brad, how are you doing this evening? First, we'll get to how you're doing this evening. Then we'll introduce our guest.
Doing pretty good. Just enjoying the evening. Enjoying this time. It's been actually got out today, so that was good. So and enjoying some football.
Yeah, I thought the Packers were going to do it. It scared me, man.
Yes,
I thought the
yes.
Packers were going to do it. I almost
I
went with my gut feeling too, because I'm like, and you even messaged me. You're like, we should have went with the gut feeling, but then right there at the end, our very own Dre Greenlaw, right there. That was the second pick of the day. He had two picks
yeah, too
yesterday,
big.
and so that was. And so, what one heck of a football game! And that's the thing, you can't root against the Detroit Lions. Of course, the Detroit Lions moved on today as well. You can't
Yes, I
root
did.
against them because they're basically the Vanderbilt of the NFL, who actually has a very good team this year, which I called last year that they would win the division. But anyway, very excited about football. What's the score of the Bills and Kansas City Chiefs right now? I haven't looked at it in a few minutes.
So I'm going to state this. I did call a field goal game against the Niners and the Packers on this very show. And
Yes, you did.
number two, score of the game is 17-13 Bills at halftime.
Oh, goodness gracious. Let's see if Josh Allen gets away from that. All right, so we will do more football talk later and everything like that. Brad, we're going to introduce our guest this time. Last week we had CJ Jenkins on from IPCW, who is one of the co-owners of IPCW, one of four owners now that I come to think of it. Now that I finally am educated with how many owners there are in IPCW. I'm just a referee, people. Y'all, I'm just a referee.
Yeah.
All right. I show up to the shows. I count 1, 2, 3. I do a lot more than count 1, 2, 3.
Ricky
Is
a talent.
I'm not. I am not a talent. Anybody can do what I do. All right. Now I can't say that for football and basketball. Not everybody can officiate football and basketball, but when it comes to wrestling, anybody with the brain that can hit a mat, count 1, 2, 3. Then again, you do have to have some technicality. So I'm not going to. But I'm just going to say it. If I can do it, you can do it. All right, we'll be fine. So, all right. So, one of the talent, I'm actually going to introduce one of the talents. I have never met this man before in my entire life. He answered the call. I said, "Hey, who wants to be interviewed?" He was the first one that answered, Brad. So, I'm going to introduce y'all to now one of the participants in the Over the Top coming up, Mr. Rika Wildlee. I don't know where he's from. We're about to find out. So, Mr. Rika, if you will turn your camera on and show everybody what you are, man. This is going to be awesome. I absolutely love this. Rika, welcome to Talking Sports with Nooner and Forrest. How are you doing this evening, sir?
Thank you for having me on your show. I am from your town, but I'm based out of Louisiana. Everyone knows if you followed the Barker, the carnival goes from town to town, and I make my way to ICPW. Very, very soon, the over-the-top battle royal has been calling my name, and I can't wait to show up in Jacksonville.
I can't wait for you to show up in Jacksonville. So what part of Louisiana are you based out of?
I am based out of central Louisiana, around Alexandria to be precise. But, I have traveled all over.
Well, so that's actually so Alexandria. I actually applied to be their unit manager last summer for. I work for Pepsi. I actually applied to be their unit manager. They went in a different direction. It's a mess down there. So I'm hoping their new unit manager down there can take care of business down there. What promotion? Do you work for a certain promotion? Like as far as if there's one promotion that Rika Wildlee is affiliated with, what promotion would that be?
That would be United Wrestling Entertainment out of Alexandria, Louisiana. That is the academy that brought me in. That is the federation or the company that I work for the most. They have shows all over Louisiana, Texas, and so forth. And I wrestle for them mostly, but I have been booked here, there, and far, and I'm looking to get out that much farther this year in 2024.
So what is your connection with IPCW? Obviously, you're going to be in the battle royal. I will be there. Brad will also be there. Brad will be there as a fan. I will actually be one of the referees that hopefully your feet
I
don't
will.
touch the floor. Hopefully, Rika, you're going to be the winner of this thing. Where I just because you came on our show and I see this character that you are, man. I'm rooting for you, man. We're just not going to tell anybody else, but I am rooting for you. But tell me about your connection with IPCW. Like, what's your connection there?
Well, to be honest, I have worked my way through Arkansas, a couple of different organizations here and there, but I happened to come across a certain over-the-top battle royal that came across my feed on Facebook, and I just thought, you know what? I've been in multiple battle royals. I've made my way through different participants at different entries and everything else, so why not make my way to Jacksonville and try to take over IPCW in the brightest of ways?
Well, I will tell you that I will tell you this much, Rika. You are definitely a colorful character. This is amazing. I was not expecting this at all, and man, you have just come.
Yeah.
You have stolen our show as it is. So, Rika, tell me about your journey. Where you start. Basically, why did you start? Why wrestling? Why was wrestling Why did you decide to become a wrestler?
Well, I'm going to tell you this. I've wanted to be a professional wrestler since I was 8 years old. I just recently turned 34. So, with that said, it's always been a dream of mine to chase the bright lights, to have my moment in the sun, if you may. So, I decided, with all the dark characters seen on the independents and throughout pro wrestling history, why not bring it back to the forefront where it all began? As a sideshow attraction of the carnival. Bring it back home. Bring it back to where they know it best. So I decided to bring the bright lights to the screen, bring the bright lights to the ring, and grace the squared circle any time that I possibly could. It all started at the United Wrestling Entertainment Academy. I came in 2021 ready to take over, ready to make my mark in the pro wrestling world. And since the day I graduated the academy, I got my certificate, I got my license to wrestle in Louisiana, and I seen other states ready to be taken over, and I've been traveling ever since.
So, that's okay. That's very. So, was there any? Who was your favorite wrestler, or any current favorite wrestlers right now besides yourself? Obviously, I mean, was there a certain wrestler that you were a big fan of that pushed you to come into wrestling?
Well, I've always been a fan of the high flying style. I've always been a fan of people like the late, great Eddie Guerrero. He was always an inspiration to me on what he could do inside and outside the ring. He could promote, he could promo, he could do anything inside the ring that was asked of him. And that right there is the epitome of being an entertainer, being an athlete, being an on-screen presence per se. And that is what drew me to the wrestling world, to do what I love today. So Eddie Guerrero has been always my biggest inspiration.
Absolutely, absolutely. Of course, Chavo Guerrero. I think he does a little bit more of independence now, doesn't he? And see, his brother Chavo. I don't think he's. I believe he does more independent wrestling now and everything like that. So that's really good. That's really good. I was always a huge fan of Vicky Guerrero. I'm not going to lie to you. Obviously, she wasn't a wrestler, but Vicky was the best heel. Like Vicky and Dominic Mysterio. Of course, Dominic when he gets a microphone, the entire crowd boos you. You can't hear him. And she was the same exact way. It's just amazing on how perfect heel.
Right.
So tell me. So so let's see. You said you graduated in 2021. Have you won any championships yet? Any kind of accolades to share with us so far?
Yes, I have. I have won the UWE Light Heavyweight Championship in 2022. I went and wrestled a battle royal at the JCW event at the Gathering of the Juggalos in 2022. It was an amazing year for the Barker. In 2023, I hit the road hungry and I traveled all through Texas, all through Arkansas, and some in Mississippi, and made my way through these 3 states, ready to branch out that much farther.
What promotions in Arkansas have you worked for? Just out of curiosity.
I have worked for CCW, which is Classic Championship Wrestling. I have worked for SCW, which is Southern Extreme Wrestling. I have worked for New Hope Extreme Wrestling, or now they're New Hope Elite Wrestling. I've worked for a select few, and now soon to work for IPCW. Just adding on to the Rika Wildlee resume, one show at a time.
Absolutely. And like I said, I'm definitely looking forward to meeting you. Like I said, I will be there as a referee. But before the show starts, before fans even coming in, Brad and myself are actually going to do a live show there. So for those of you who are listening in on this, or who will be listening in on this, next Sunday at 3:00, Brad and myself will both be there. We're going to do a live show there. So we will be live. This will be our second time that we will ever be live. The first time we went live was a little bit over a month ago. I was on vacation. Brad invited me to come over to Hot Springs Village where he lives, and we were able to do a live show. So Rika, with that being said, what goals do you have? Do you hope to get to WWE or an AEW or a big time promotion? What is your main overall goal for your wrestling career?
I'm going to tell you this just like I've told so many others. My main goal is to make it big to WWE or so forth. But my ultimate goal is to pay it forward. You know, as a wrestler, no one is meant to wrestle forever. No one is meant to take the bumps and bruises forever. So as I learn and I grasp each little bit of wrestling ability inside the pro wrestling world, my ultimate goal is to have my own wrestling school one day, to be able to breed the next batch of amazing talent. That is what I want to do. I would love to go to WWE. I'd love to go to AEW, maybe even NWA. But the fact is, one day, when I finally tip my hat its final tilt, I know where my ultimate goal is, and that is to pay it forward to the next batch of amazing talent. That's all I want.
Hey, Ricky,
like I had it paid to me.
I'm sorry, Rika. I was just going to jump in for a minute. I had an interesting question. What is the inspiration for your character? To me, I'm just speaking personally right now. When I see you, you remind me of a Doink the Clown when he first came into the WWE.
I've been told that it was different ones that inspired my gimmick, you know, just based on my antics, based on my charisma and this, that, and the other. But to be honest, my character, I wanted to bring the lights because I haven't seen that many with the lights, with the colorful brightness that I bring, you know. I see so many dark characters out there, Undertaker-esque per se, but I don't see that many that shine the screens like I do. So, regardless of being a clown, regardless of being a clown, I wanted to be the Barker. The Barker is the one of the carnival. He's the one that says, come one, come all, step right up. Come and witness the amazing antics that I only can bring to the screen. I only can grace in the ring. And every time I step through that curtain, no matter what I do, no matter how many losses, no matter how many wins, no matter how many matches I have, you'll remember the bright lights. That is for certain.
I think that's a very interesting thing because when I was a kid, I'll share this story. Doink the Clown, when he first began, he scared the bejesus out of me when I was a little kid. I'll make that clear right now. And so when you said the carnival and everything, right away I went to Doink the Clown, And I just think to me it was like one of the most underrated characters in WWE history. I think he was actually underutilized a lot
Well,
as
Steve,
far because he was a great heel, and that's why I
very
remember
true.
going to very very great heel. And so
Well,
anyway,
see, that's what
go
I
ahead.
that's what I feel is missing from the wrestling world nowadays. We have so many talents out there, and I'm not taking anything for the amazing in-ring ability of most wrestlers nowadays, but I do miss characters. There's a big difference between being a wrestler, being an athlete, and being an entertainer. Regardless
Yes.
of what I can do in the ring, I can run circles around most wrestlers, but the fact is that you are definitely going to be entertained from the time I step through the curtain to the time I make it to the back. That is what I am here to do because I am a character. Talent will only take you so far in in-ring ability, but being a character will carry you a lifetime.
You know, and I think that is great because I'm glad you point that out because I 100% agree. Characters there's a lot of in-ring talent today, and there's a lot of, but a lot of the best talents as far as hasn't necessarily been their athletic ability, but it's been their gimmicks. Like Doink the Clown. If you look at, I mean, again, you just remember that person for who they were. The Undertaker gimmick. You don't when he was kayfabe, when he was keeping kayfabe, you remember the Undertaker as this scary guy and everything else, but now, of course, he's more open. But you still see the Undertaker has the Undertaker, that character, that
Right.
sort of thing. Ric Flair's a great one too because Ric Flair, yes, he had talent and everything else, but he's still that character, that kiss stealing, Willem dealing, son of a gun. I mean that's what I think exactly. That's that's just some of the character. When I think of great wrestlers and the greatest wrestlers of all time, even Shawn Michaels with all of his ability, the Heartbreak Kid. That's what I think about when I think about wrestlers and characters.
You know, as this new generation has came to be wrestling fans and watch these people, not saying that Roman Reigns isn't good in his own light and John Cena hasn't been good in his own light and so on and so forth. Back in the day when wrestling was in its heyday and kayfabe was all over the place and everybody, there was no behind the scenes. It was
Right.
just you believed what was on screen and that's all you were given. So to be honest, even though kayfabe has been broken, these characters, such as myself and others that I see on the independents, can really still draw that dreamlike antic to captivate the fans if they decide to.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and I think one thing, Brad, I'm gonna let me chime in just a second because it was something
Okay.
kind of because you talked about behind the scenes and everything like that. I remember whenever I was training as a referee, and we first started doing shows, heels were not even allowed to come behind the curtain and intermingle with fans. And we're
Mm-hmm.
not like even with WWE, we're not seeing that anymore. We're seeing heels are like you look at WrestleMania Access, you're going to get baby faces signing autographs, kissing babies, doing the whole thing. Heels are doing the same thing now. It's to me, and it's kind of like the Undertaker in the old school way. There was something he always wanted to protect the character, and he really didn't start coming out as Mark Calloway until the end of his career.
Right.
Whenever he knew he was ready to give it up and all that kind of stuff. So to me, Rika, you're more for protecting that character as much as you possibly can.
I love it. Yeah.
Very much so. Very, very much so. I mean, to be honest, as Undertaker and others, if you put that much work into building a character, because see, Rika Wildlee started by promoing. That's what created this character that you see before you. It wasn't in the ring. Before I even joined the wrestling school, I was online promoing against other promo artists who aren't professional wrestlers in character, in gimmick, and things like that. So when I put so much time and effort into building this world that you see outside of a normal day job or outside of a normal 9 to 5 or whatever the case may be, when you really give to the crowd and you convince them, hey, the carnival is real, the sideshow freaks are real. Rika Wildlee, 365, 100 days out of forever, is always a clown. He's always the barker. He goes to sleep the barker. He wakes up the barker. He is always in character, regardless of what I do. After the mask comes off, after the lights dim, they're dim. Regardless of that, the character, the fans believe it. And that is what I am here to do. I want to give that little bit of all back to the fans that don't know any different. This new generation have no clue what we grew up on, seeing all these amazing characters like Doink the Clown, like Macho Man Randy Savage. You know why most of the guys got over? Because there was no behind the scenes. There was no, hey, soon as you flip over to YouTube, you're going to see these guys that was just talking trash about the fans, shaking hands with the fans and signing autographs. You know,
Right. Yeah,
it's all about that keeping the box sealed.
Absolutely. And I was going to say last week when we interviewed CJ, I believe. Am I correct, Ricky? I forget names very quickly. Yeah, CJ. Yeah, I'm so horrible at names, and it's kind of crazy. But anyway, when we were interviewing CJ, I told him that my favorite wrestling was back in the day when I was able to watch Saturday morning wrestling in Memphis, Tennessee, and I knew. And at that time,
Yes.
I didn't know Jerry Lawler owned the Memphis territory, but I knew that the King Lawler was going to go in there and kick some butt, and he was going to pull down. He was going to get hurt a little bit. He's going to pull down the strap. He's going to make his comeback, do the big fist off the top rope and get the 1, 2, 3, and the King goes on top. That's what I grew up on, and I loved it because. You know, it's that character that even Jerry Lawler built, for example, in Memphis, that became popular in a region that captivated an audience because he was either going to captivate you as a babyface or he was going to captivate you as the biggest heel ever. I mean, again, I always go back to like we talked about 90s wrestling when he first came to the WWE and how he went after the Hart family. Oh my goodness! You want to see some classic stuff right there with going after his mom and his dad, going after a whole Hart clan. I mean, just pull up some of that YouTube footage, and that'll get you some heat right there.
That's amazing. No doubt, no doubt. But see, that's the thing about characters versus what we see on TV and what we witness at shows nowadays. You know, fans, yes, they come and they pay to see these names and they pay to see these matches. And if you really dig into it, you already know kind of how the match is going to go. But the fact is, if you've got gimmicks like mine and others that really put time and effort into building a world outside of the ring, so by the time you step through the curtain, they already understand exactly what you're about. Absolutely. I'm the kid's favorite television character. I am a superhero, you know, per se. I'm your favorite comic book character come to life. That's the way I portray this gimmick. You know, everything you watch on Saturday morning cartoons, I am that in actual form. So when kids see the gimmick and they see the lights and they see all the crazy stuff I do, it's one of those things they don't have to sit back and go, okay, I saw somebody like him on WWE. I saw somebody like him on AEW. You know, I am what you see when you think cartoon. I am what you see when you think comic book. And it's something different. And that's what draws the fans to the gimmick. Yes. So it is what it is.
I like it.
I do too, man. I love it, dude. This is awesome. Where did the name Rika Wildlee come from?
Well, to be honest, Rika, I'm a huge D&D fan. Okay. I love Dungeons and Dragons. I always have, always will. I'll never take away from that. So when I was about 14 years old, one of my friends gave me the name, my D&D character, Ricochet, because everything I'd done, I would always throw something or shoot somebody or something, and it would always ricochet off something and hit the other character. It happened multiple times, and before long, he was just like, "That's your nickname, Ricochet." And when I started wrestling and I started doing the promo stuff, I was going to be Rika the Wild Card Lee. But then I started doing my research on other, and there's a bazillion wild cards. Every other independent wrestler is the wild card something. So my actual middle name is Lee. So it became Rika Wildlee. And it just stuck.
Like it.
Yes, sir. Brad, you got any more questions for him?
Well,
Brad, I think you unplugged.
Well, I'm back. Am I back?
Yeah,
yes,
you're back.
Yes.
Okay, so good. Well, I do have a few more questions.
I'm an open book.
Well, I've got a couple of questions, I guess I should say. So you said you wrestled at Alexandria. What is the wildest West wrestling story that you have from anywhere you wrestled at?
Well, one of the wildest wrestling stories that I have. Okay, this is a match. This was actually like my third professional match, and it was me versus Gatekeeper in a Singapore cane match in Center, Texas. Gatekeeper had he had just come in as a referee in the United Wrestling Entertainment Academy. He had just graduated. He was our main referee, and I've known this guy for so many years, and then me and him ended up having some words in a match over him not doing his job correctly. So before you know it, he grabbed some tights, he put on the singlet, and he said, "You want a match against me, the Gatekeeper, the one that counts 1, 2, 3? You got it, brother." And he sent a match out. He sent a promo out to me. It got booked, and we went to Center, Texas, and burned the house down. He took the Singapore cane, and when I say whelps across my body up and down, there was whelps all across my body up and down. So I learned a lesson. If you're going to talk a big game, be prepared to back it up. That's all I'm saying.
I love that because, me and Ricky's known each other for 17 years, almost 20 years now. And I told Ricky, I said, I'm going to go there as a fan to really heckle him to death. But I would love to see Ricky take a bump during this event. That would be so awesome. I would love him to take a bump. Yeah, he could take a bump and everything else. Become a wrestler, become a talent. I think that would be one of the great things. He could, there's some great referees that's wrestled. Ricky, Earl Hemder had a match one time. I think Mike Chioda.
Hey, there's a few.
Yeah, Mike Chioda, Nick Patrick. A few of them have. So I mean,
well, see, that's the thing is when me and Gatekeeper faced off in Center, Texas in the Singapore cane match, that really pushed him to becoming a professional wrestler. And now me and him have traveled all over Texas, Mississippi, Arkansas. We're matter of fact, February 10th. It's CCW in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Me and the Gatekeeper are having our 6th match against each other. Every time I think I get one over on the Gatekeeper, he seems to pull a quick one and beat me around every turn. But I'm going this time to make it known that me and the Gatekeeper, this is it. This is the final showdown. I want him to understand, even though we've known each other 20 years, it's time to call it quits.
Rika, another question I had just real quick, one more, and I'll be done. Who do you look to as far as doing promos, and who you think has the best promos in your opinion in wrestling?
Up until about 2015, I would have always said The Undertaker, because they were dark. They spoke to the soul, not just the character, not just the fans, not just to the opponent that he was going against. They spoke outside, and they really developed on who he was in the world that he was trying to build. I would have said The Undertaker. But since then, the late, great, amazing, talented Bray Wyatt.
Yes.
That is the best promo artist that I have ever seen come across. In my personal opinion, I know everybody's got their own, but Bray Wyatt during the Wyatt family era and up until the Fiend and everything else, the way he came across the screen, the way he talked to the fans and his opponents, and the way he really drew you in with each and every word. You were sitting on the edge of your seat waiting to see what happens. That is what makes a promo artist the amazing talent that they are. So yes, I'm going to say Bray Wyatt, hands down.
Definitely see that because Bray Wyatt, obviously, also the son of IRS, which if you listen to IRS and stuff, Mike Rotunda, if you listen to him in his promos as the IRS character, that was some of the great promos as well. Got me always hated the IRS ever since then. So there you go.
Perfect heel.
Yeah,
pay your taxes. Oh goodness gracious! After that, my wife's birthday's on tax day, so I can remind myself every year. So here's something funny for you too. So now, and I'll just be on. I'll be honest with you guys. So I have taken bumps before many years ago. Whenever I was doing this, I have taken bumps. I'm all for taking one or two here and there. But as far as like being an in-ring talent goes, there would have to be some modifications for me to be able to be a wrestler these days. I'm being honest with you guys, and I mean it's
okay,
it's not the bumps. It's not the bumps. It's not the work you put into. I mean, here I will put it to you this way. If I do, as far as like my scheduling and everything like that goes, I'm just being honest. I would want to have the time to actually work on my character, work on my gimmick, work on my in-ring performance. I want that kind of time. I don't have that kind of time anymore. I just don't. And that's just me per se. If I'm going to pursue a passion that I love, I want to get something. I want to be able to work with it. Podcasting, we do shows just about every week. Sometimes we have to skip a week. I'm part of 2 different podcasts.
Right.
I will be a part of the shows. I will go to shows. I will be a fan of the shows. I will referee matches. I will put work in. I have time to put that kind of work in. Officiating football, officiating basketball. I do those things. I do high school basketball. I do high school football as well. And so, I put, and it takes so much time. I would not have the kind of time to put in my character the way a lot of these wrestlers, especially yourself, Rika, where I would be able to take that time to work on myself, to develop myself into a talent. And it's not that I don't want to, but it's like it's not my passion. It was just not my passion to. And that's with all due respect to anybody that does this, because it's their passion. What I want to do, Rick, it's kind of like you're talking about giving back. When I step foot into a ring and I'm officiating a match, yes, there are certain things that go into it. Yes, there's certain work that goes into it. My whole ordeal of being a referee is to make you guys look good. I could care less how I look. They're going to boo me. I don't care. The commentators, they're going to commentate about me, but it's not a personal thing. And I know that because it's part of the show. And I'm all for that. I'm all for that. And so, but something I've noticed over the last few years, Rika, is, and I want to get your state of today's wrestling. And here's the reason why I say this. We talk about the NIL deals that the college athletes are getting. We kind of relate to this. Wrestlers paying their dues. And it seems like even so in the WWE, you've got Logan Paul, who has just come in. And don't get me wrong, Logan Paul has been terrific so far. But to me, it seems like we don't see as many wrestlers so paying their dues. Do you see that, or are there still promotions that are like, no, you're going to pay your dues, you're going to work your way up? What is your thoughts on today's wrestling when it comes toward that?
Well, when it comes to paying your dues, I put a post out on Facebook the other day, and I'm going to explain it just like this. There are a lot of talents that came in, and you haven't seen them before. You haven't, they just show up, and all of a sudden they're top tier, just like Logan Paul. Not saying that Logan Paul isn't some social media big wig and this, that, and the other, but as far as coming in, and now he's overstepping talent that has been there, that has put in the work, that has put in the time, put in the days, the weeks, the months, building this world that we call professional wrestling. And for Logan Paul and people like him to come in and overstep that is kind of a slap in the face, to be honest. Not saying he's not talented. I give the man his dues. He's incredibly talented for not being, a professional wrestler up until the last year or two. But as far as if you see people come up on the independents, you see people and they've wrestled shows locally for different states and things like that, and you've watched them grow, and then you've watched them work their way up through NXT and this, that, and the other, and they've really built a fan base based on their ability alone. That is part of paying your dues. But the way I see it, the way I personally see it, there's a lot more that goes into paying your dues than what promoters and bookers ask. They expect you, on the independents especially, they expect you to pay your dues by taking undercuts at some points when it comes to payment, setting up and breaking down the ring, helping out with ticket sales, putting up posters. And that's all part of the journey, okay? That's all part of the journey. But my deal is this. Paying your dues goes so much deeper than that. Because when I step through the curtain, as a independent wrestler who is not even 5 years deep yet, when I step through that curtain, I am paying my dues no matter if I'm beat, battered, bruised, hurt, whatever the case may be. I am giving back to the fans that may have spent their last $20 buying a ticket for their child to see a smile on their face when their bills and rent is due. Their world is going to crap outside of this place. But it is my job as an entertainer, my job as a wrestler, an athlete, and everything under the big top. It is my job to give back and pay my dues to them. Not the bookers, not the promoters, to pay my dues to the ones who have spent their hard-earned money to watch me perform. That is what paying your dues is about.
And that is very true, because Logan Paul, again, I kind of feel the same way you do, Rika, especially when you watch some of these documentaries, the Dark Side of the Ring documentaries. The one that really speaks out to me about that, what you were talking about, was the Luna Vachon documentary.
Yes.
A woman that paid her dues and everything else for women's wrestling. It was a great talent. And then all of a sudden, Sable comes in, and so all of a sudden, Sable's top tier, and she's actually having to get Sable over and everything else. And she does her job to get Sable over. And when she go in the back, she thought Vince McMahon had flowers for her, was going to congratulate her. The flowers are for Sable and everything else. And so,
I mean, think about it. If you see Logan Paul going against Ricochet, Ricochet is one of the best talents in the past decade, if not more.
Right.
And for Logan Paul to come in and all of a sudden be on that same level, not saying that they haven't put on some bangers, but to be on that same level as Ricochet after all these years of him putting his body on the line, building this career that he has, for Logan Paul to just step onto that same level, it's kind of a slap to the face to me. Even though he is talented,
No, I 100% agree. And the thing about it is, too, if you think about Luna Vachon, that's one. Another one I was thinking of was if you think about the downfall of WCW, when the NWO started getting hot, and then all of a sudden you add more characters and more characters. If you joined the NWO, you got pushed harder. But if you were like somebody like Chris Jericho, or you were like the Big Show, or the Giant at the time, but ends up being the Big Show, or Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko and those type of wrestlers who could never get any momentum because they were being held back. And again, I think, and I like Eric Bischoff. I think Eric Bischoff is a genius in some sense. Some sense he's not, but there's
Right.
an argument both. But I think his mistake was, you know, when a character would come in, want to join the NWO, or they had all these celebrities coming in, and they would give them a big push all of a sudden, and again, it just took a spot away from someone that had worked hard, paid their dues, and and it just took a spot away from that certain person, and I think that's totally wrong. But again, at the same time, you do get a once in a lifetime talent, or sometimes you get somebody that gets red hot,
Yes.
like Bill Goldberg. Goldberg just got hot at the right time, and he started kicking some butt, and fans started
Right.
gravitating him over and over and over again. And eventually,
Overnight.
overnight, within a year or so, he was world champion. When he beat Hulk Hogan. But that's a very rare case. And again, some would even question Bill Goldberg's talent, per se, in ring talent, but has a character, like we were talking about earlier, characters. He was told not to speak. He was kind of a mystery man, tough guy type character, and that's what won the fans over
You
with
know,
him. But that's one of those things that's different.
That's the thing, when all of that was going on in WCW, they needed, just like WWF had, they needed a bald guy in black trunks. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they needed that guy. So they called him in. They got the guy they wanted. They started pushing him that much harder. Why? Because WWF had one, and he was top tier talent. He had him in the palm of his hand. I'm not dropping any. That's the bottom line. But here it is.
Yep.
The fact is, WCW needed one at the perfect time, and they got Bill Goldberg to come in and take that spot. Now, a lot of people forget, especially wrestling fans around that time, forget that there's only so much television time. Okay? There's only so much television time. And if you've got people like Goldberg, you've got all these celebrities coming in, all of this stuff is happening, and you've got 2.5, maybe 3 hours at the time on Nitro or Thunder that is taking the spotlight. People like Chris Jericho, people like the Giant, people like Eddie Guerrero are getting buried. We're getting buried strictly because it was a cheap pop. That's the way I'm going to explain it. Seeing a celebrity on screen was a cheaper pop than having them go out there and show their ability.
One more question. Another question I just got to thinking about. And this is a age-old question. Many years ago, Jesse Ventura made the statement that wrestlers should unionize. And of course, they were actually thinking about doing that until Hulk Hogan actually brought the light to Vince McMahon what their plan was. And that kind of what destroyed their relationship. Rumor in your window was basically that Hogan told Vince McMahon that the wrestlers were planning on unionize and everything else. And so based on my understanding, wrestlers are independent contractors, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that. I think they are independent contractors, or they're considered according to tax code. My question to you is, do you think a wrestling union could ever exist with all the personalities and everything that goes on anyway? Or do you think that should be something that should happen?
Not saying it couldn't, but with the powers that be and the money at hand, it would be really hard for the company that they're unionizing against to pay the dues and pay the money to have them push them aside.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, how are you going to unionize and have that financial backing when the company you're unionizing against is the one who pays your bills?
Yep. Yep. That makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. I 100% agree.
It's kind of a circle.
Yep.
So, Rika, I've got a couple of questions, and then we're going to get you out of here. Question number one.
Yes, sir.
And today's wrestling, whether it's WWE, whether it's an independent circuit, I don't care who it is, AEW, whatever the case may be, your opinion right now, pound for pound, who is the best in-ring performer right now?
Ricochet.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
I respect that. I respect that.
Pound for pound. Now, I do follow a lot on independents. I do, and there's so many on the independent scene, but 90% of the ones that are doing the stuff that Ricochet is doing. See, Ricochet came in at a time to where flipping and lucha style and all of that was still considered old school. Nowadays, with the way the independents are doing it, like, what is that Viking guy, Vikingo or whatever his name is, that does, yeah, he's like a Viking dude. He does all the flips and jumps and all that. But yeah, most independent high flyers do nothing but bury moves that could have stopped even the hardest of opponents. The Canadian Destroyer, for example. It's done in every single match. Almost every single time you see it on TV, it's done, and they kick right out. Back when Ricochet started, if somebody got hit with a Canadian Destroyer, that was a wrap. You know what I mean? Like, there was no kicking out. That's like the Sweet Chin Music was back in the day. Now you see a super kick 1,000 times a match. And, you know, it's just another, it's a DDT. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's just an average deal. So, in my opinion, pound for pound, not saying that he could go against, you know, super heavyweights and all that stuff. I'm just saying with his ability, his charisma, the things he's got going on, the talent that he possesses, my pick is Ricochet.
I got a question for you on that. You speaking of high spots, do you think there is too many high spots in wrestling matches?
Oh, yes. Oh, God, yes. It really takes away from the match if every single turn is a spot. You're not doing any wrestling. You're literally, it's just a spot fest. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm all about seeing some crazy off the wall move. And you're just like, oh my, there's no such thing as an, oh my God moment anymore, because every single 2 seconds is an, oh my God moment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's okay to do a couple. It's okay to have a couple in your match. But as far as it's not a battle of who's better in ring. It's a battle of who's going to get the bigger pop. And that's where wrestling has fell to the wayside. As far, you got two opponents and all they're worried about is who's going to get the bigger pop. Yeah. That's not what wrestling is about. Wrestling is about understanding your audience. Wrestling is about knowing when to go home, knowing when to call the finish, knowing when to, how to work, knowing how to do all of that. It's not about, I'm going to do this and they're going to pop. Then I'm going to do this and they're going to pop. And it takes away from the match. And really it takes away from your character and your athletic ability. If that's all you can do is spots.
And Rika, and that's why I would say, I know Ricky had another question. I'm sorry, Ricky. But I was going to say this. That's why it's so hard for me to watch today's wrestling, to be honest with you, because I like, right now, during the late at night when I get kind of bored and stuff, I'll still watch the old primetime wrestling, WWE, where they used to do the chin locks. They used to do the for example, Arn Anderson, the DDT or Jake the Snake Rob, the DDT with their finisher. That would be that could be a finisher today. I mean, Jerry Lawler had the pile driver. That could be a finisher. The elbow. I mean, you anticipated that moment. They built you up to that moment when they were going to drop the DDT or
it's a
the
story.
elbow.
It's a story.
Yes.
It's a story. Now, think of this. You got Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart in a 60-minute Iron Man match. If that was going to happen on today's TV, think of the spot fest that would have been. The reason we enjoyed that match so much is because those two wrestled. They wrestled the entire time. And you waited for that sharpshooter. You waited for that Sweet Chin Music. You waited for that elbow. You waited for those moments to pop. Not that every 2 seconds you're like, oh, boom, bam. It just pop, pop, pop. The match wouldn't have been nothing. It just would have been another generic whatever. it wouldn't be as memorable if it was if
Right.
it would have happened today.
No, it would
Yeah,
not.
I still think.
But
I
that's
still think.
what.
No, I was just going to say I still think I still think that Brett Michaels, goodness gracious, Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. I still think that's the greatest rivalry in the history of the WWE, and just for the
No
simple
doubt.
fact is the state of mind that Shawn was in back then. They hated each other's guts personally and professionally, and that was
Yep.
just. I mean, even when you look back on some of these rivalry documentaries and things like that that they put on there. By far the best rivalry. By far the best rivalry. I don't know of another rivalry like theirs. You could argue Edge and Matt Hardy, but Edge and Matt Hardy hated each other because of the fact of the affair that happened between Lita and Edge. Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels just plain hated each other. That's just all there was to it.
Well, and here's another thing too. Me and you had this discussion, Ricky. A couple of things. Number one, that Iron Man match that Rika talked about. I mean, I would advise anyone to watch if you want to see a good story unfold. Watch that Iron Man match. I mean, I remember watching that as a kid at live on pay-per-view. And even turning on today, I'm like, wow, who's going to win this? It's even got me intrigued about who wins it. Although I know Shawn goes over and wins it, but everything else. But that's why me and Ricky has had a disagreement with because Ricky prefers Shawn. I prefer Bret because I like the technicality of Bret Hart as far as being the best technical wrestler ever. In my opinion, he's the best technical. I'm not saying he's the best wrestler. He's the best technical wrestler. And I think what made Bret and Shawn so great was, Shawn had that athletic ability. He was a great wrestler of his own. He was a great performer.
Showman.
Exactly. But Bret had that technical aspect that he brought into the match, but that just made the matches between them like 10 times better than probably just about any match on the card that you would have in that era.
And it was believable. That's the thing. Even though, off screen, on screen, they had that tension. And even every time they came across each other, you felt like you were standing in the room and could cut that tension with a knife. Like you felt it. And that is what's missing from today's wrestling. Like, that tension isn't there anymore. I know kayfabe has been broken, and we could say that 1,000 times, but having real deal rivalries with people nowadays, they last 1 or 2 months and the rivalry's over. On to the next story.
You go Bret and Shawn, you go Dusty and Ric Flair, you go with Undertaker and Kane, even the later 90s. That was a great rivalry there. You just talk about some of these great, The Rock and Steve Austin. That was a great rivalry because again, that tension you couldn't cut it with a knife because that tension was always there. And that's, Sting and Ric Flair. That's what made their rivalry so great. I mean, you could go on and on. What made great matches was because, like you say, the ability to tell a good story.
Right. And I know I'm the one being interviewed here, but I've got a question for you guys.
Yeah.
All right.
Here you go. What way, outside of the way it actually happened, do you think they could have ended the Undertaker streak?
Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns was the guy. Plain and simple. Roman Reigns. Here, all right. So here's the thing, Rika, and listen to me because I'm so glad you asked the question because the fact of the matter is, I've actually thought about that question for many, many years. Since it happened, who was the guy? To me, it was Roman Reigns because he needed it the most. Brock Lesnar did not need to win that match. Brock was already a big enough guy. He was already a big enough character who had many accolades. The fact is, during the time that Roman did end up beating the Undertaker a couple of years later in Orlando, to me, he needed to break the streak more because they were trying to build him to be the next John Cena, to be the face of the company, but they wanted him to be this babyface character. That was the biggest issue, was that they wanted him to be this babyface character just like John Cena was, kiss all the babies, hug all the mamas, all this other kind of stuff. But that wasn't Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns needed to do something epic. And to me, getting Roman Reigns over as far as a business decision goes, Roman was the guy. I thought Roman Reigns should have been the one that ended the streak. Nobody else wanted to, though. That's the thing, though. If you ask Edge, he didn't want to do it. You ask Randy Orton, he didn't want to do it. Triple H didn't want to do it. Shawn Michaels didn't want to do it. Roman Reigns would have been the guy that said, "Yeah, I'll do it. Let's do it. If we're talking business, let's do it."
I completely understand where you're coming from, but I think there was only one or two ways that it could have happened. And here's way one. They build the story. They've been building this story for, at the time, at most of 25 years. They have Undertaker and Kane face off at WrestleMania. And at the very last moment, Kane picks Undertaker up for the tombstone. He drops him down. And when he drops him down, lights go off. Flames come up on the post. Lightning strikes the ring. And when the lights come on, there's Kane's mask. There's Undertaker's urn and hat and gloves, and they both retire. Boom. Kane took him home.
That would have been interesting. That's a good. I like your thinking. That would have been a great ending.
I love that.
But that's what I'm saying. A 25-year story that the whole reason Kane showed up was to beat his brother. Period. Point blank.
Yeah,
see, I actually thought when I was a kid, when they're like Kane and Undertaker brothers, I'm like, yeah, they're real brothers in real life, and then you come to find out years later they're not. It's like this is a bunch of crap.
Or you got Bray Wyatt and the Undertaker, and then Bray Wyatt and the Undertaker are facing off. Undertaker goes to pick Bray Wyatt up. Bray Wyatt reverses it, hits him with the Sister Abigail. 1, 2. Lights go off. You hear the 3 count. Lightning strikes. When the lights come on, Undertaker's gone. Hat and urn are in the middle of the ring. Bray Wyatt takes the urn, becomes possessed, and that's how he becomes the Fiend.
I love that too.
You got one heck of a mind. Goodness great. You need to be behind creation and all that kind of stuff. Goodness, you need to be like a one of those creator writers and everything. All right, so Brad, what about you? Who do you think should have Undertaker?
You see, I'm kind of along with Rika's line of thinking. I don't think I would end the streak per se. I don't think I would end the streak either. I think I would have Undertaker. I mean, I don't think Brock was the guy, although the Undertaker, I mean, pretty much they had Brock. It's according who you ask, because some people will say, well, the Undertaker chose Brock Lesnar to do it. Vince McMahon told Undertaker that Brock was going to go over. No, the Undertaker's never going to say no to Vince McMahon. So that's how it happened. It's just corn. It's corn. It's apples to oranges, per se. They're both still fruit.
Yeah.
But I would, the way I would, if I would, boy, I love your idea, Rika. I never even thought of that, to be honest with you.
I haven't either.
At all. I like that because the Undertaker was known to pop up like that, a lot of times when he was making a comeback or doing a story, just that sort of thing. So I see that. I definitely see your thing right there. I see your point of view. I just wouldn't end it. I just wouldn't end it because, again, I don't think anybody wanted it to end. I think everybody wanted it to continue. I think it's just one of those legendary stories that made The Undertaker a legend. And even to his last match, I would have had Undertaker go over, put his gloves down, and just be
it wouldn't have had to end. It wouldn't have had to end. It just could have been put to sleep. It could have been. It could have rested in peace.
That's why I like your idea. That's why I like your ideal, because it was. Yeah. I see it's resting in peace, and I like I say, with AJ Styles being his last match, I could see him just burying AJ Styles, taking off his gloves, laying his hat down, saying my work is done, riding on his motorcycle, riding off of the sunset. Just
if I was creative for that match and he buried AJ Styles, in my opinion, he should have walked through the smoke. There'd been a second grave, and he climbed down in it, laid down in the casket, and that's it. Gone.
I like that too. I do like that.
Goodness gracious,
Although I think the reason why they chose the motorcycle was the Undertaker likes riding motorcycles and stuff, and of course it's a contribute. It's a tribute to the American Badass character as well. So I mean that's the main thing, and so, but I think I just wouldn't end it. I just would just let it continue to go and build its own thing. The Undertaker ain't going to be able to work like he used to. That's okay. He makes that a special appearance. The fans each and every year is anticipate. Is this the year the streak ends? Is this the year? Is this the year? No, there's very many close calls and everything else. But at the end of the day, he just goes out on top, puts his gloves down, puts that hat down, has a shovel full of dirt on the grave of AJ Styles, and there he goes.
Well, and that's the thing. If it would have ever happened to where the thing I was talking about with Bray Wyatt and the urn and all of that, and he takes the urn and slowly over time, they could have built that story longer to where he's slowly becoming possessed by the urn. You hear Paul Bearer in the background every now and again doing his laugh, and Bray Wyatt has no clue what that noise is. He just hears it, and it's like haunting him. And then over time, he becomes the Fiend, and that would explain where the Fiend come from.
Yeah,
Fiend just kind of showed up.
I love it.
He just kind of he just kind of showed up one day, but there was no backstory to the Fiend.
There was no backstory. No, there was not. You're exactly right.
And so
but that would have gave them that little bit of edge. So
you definitely have a creative mind. There's no doubt about that. But Rika, I'm gonna ask you one more question, and we're gonna let you get out. We're gonna get out of here. Speaking of long streaks, Roman Reigns is still champion, and there is a possibility. There are talks. He could beat Hulk Hogan's record on the next one, which I think is 1,470 days, give or take, or something like that. But with that being said, in today's WWE, who needs to beat Roman Reigns and dethrone Roman Reigns?
That's a hard one, to be honest. That's a hard one. I know that they've built this whole Samoan dynasty thing, and they've milked it to death with the head of the table and all of that kind of stuff. And not that I am saying he needs to come back and have a full in-ring, comeback and all of that. But I would not be mad if The Rock was the one to knock him off the throne. Not saying he should have a full-size comeback, but to show him, hey, you may think you're top tier, you may think you're the head of the table, but there's still some sitting in the back, the ones that created this Samoan dynasty, that really hold the reins, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely see that too.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be. I wouldn't be mad either. I would not. I would not be mad either. I just think like he's such. They have turned him into this huge character. I mean, he is just this huge guy now, and his contract speaks for it. There's a reason he doesn't do house shows anymore.
Yeah.
There's a reason he doesn't do small markets anymore. They have built him to this big character. Of course, I think there's also some other health issues that he deals with when he's away from WWE. But Rika,
he's an attraction.
There you go. There you go. But Rika, on behalf of Talkin Sports and Forrest, I highly appreciate you coming on today.
Yes,
sir.
You have been one heck of a guest. Did not expect such a color. All these blinking lights that you have and the character that you have. I am looking forward. I am looking forward to it, and I know that other wrestlers are going to listen to this interview, and I can't cheat the match or anything like that. That's not what I'm going to do. But I'm rooting for you, my man.
Right there.
I am highly rooting for you. No, you ask. I'm serious. You ask anybody that knows me. It doesn't matter who it is. I've called my alma mater twice. Once in football, once in basketball. I called it right down the middle. I mean, it's just who I am. And so, but man, I'm rooting for you, man. I cannot wait to meet you. I greatly appreciate you coming on the show.
One other thing, Ricky, if he was one of those great characters like the $1 Million Man back in the late 80s and 90s, he could give you a few $100 bills and start putting in your pocket.
Oh man,
Everybody's got a price.
everybody.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me on here. I really, really appreciate you guys letting me on your show. And I'm looking forward to the Over the Top Battle Royal and meeting you guys and seeing what kind of talent steps over that rope, you know. So
absolutely. Looking forward to seeing you too, Rika.
Yes, sir. I can't wait to see you wrestle. Can't wait to see your character again, man. This has been one great day. Thank you so much for being on. And for those of y'all who have been listening to this, we highly appreciate you. Hit the like and subscribe button on YouTube. We are also on Facebook, Talking Sports with Nooner and Forrest on Facebook. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.